Hi everyone, this is the ToRAISE Questions Doula podcast, and I'm ToRAISE Hakoon. I'm Executive Director of ToLabor, which is a doula activist training and certification program. Well, here we are, another week and another guest I'm excited to talk to. We will be talking to a doula from North Carolina, Dana. But she is going to be talking about her birth story and the presence of a doula and how the doula impacted her labor and birth. So she really won't be talking, I don't know, we'll see how it plays out, much about being a doula. It's more about her story and the impact, as I said, of having a doula. So I look forward to that. We'll be right back. Hi everyone. So I'm here with Dana Jarman. She is a doula herself in North Carolina, and as I said, she's going to be telling her birth story about giving birth and having a doula with her. And so I'm just going to get started. Hi, Dana. How are you?
Hi, ToRAISE. I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm great. It's really nice that you're going to be here and share your story with us today. So I just want to get us started. Tell us a little bit about you and how you got involved in being a doula, and then segue right into your birth story, if you don't mind.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thanks for having me. I am married to my husband, Joseph. We have one little guy named Beckham, and he just turned a year old 2 days ago. So it's kind of awesome to have a little toddler now. He's running around, and it's incredible. This past year has gone by really quick. I was interested in birth before he was born. It's always been really fascinating to me, and I never really knew that there was a way of getting involved with birth before having your own kids. So the way that I kind of happened upon learning about what a doula was and wanting to become one eventually was a friend of mine that I wasn't super tight with at the time, but now has ended up being my best friend, my doula partner, and my doula at my birth. Her name is Morgan. We'll talk about her a lot in my birth story. She played a really important role, but she was pregnant with her first son, and she talked a lot on social media about choosing to have him at a freestanding birth center as opposed to a hospital. She talked a lot about her doula. She talked a lot about her midwives and placenta encapsulation and all these other things, and I was just fascinated by her choices. And I had never even heard of a freestanding birth center before, and I just felt like she had a lot of information and wisdom that I wanted to kind of take from her. She shared it with me. I didn't take it from her, but
Yeah, I did.
So I asked if she would meet with me, and we hung out and became fast friends. And she just told me about what a doula did, and I think in describing to her how I felt about birth and pregnant women and families and babies and pregnancy in general, she was like, Dana, you need to look into being a doula. Like, this sounds like something that you'd be good at, and seems like you have the personality for it, and I think you just look into it. So she told me about ToLabor, and I was like, well, I mean, I can't be a doula yet. I don't have any kids. I've never done this before. I mean, who's going to want to hire a doula that has never had kids before? And I quickly realized how wrong I was about that. And that, being a doula is about unconditionally supporting a client in their choices and being present for them and meeting people where they are. And you don't have to have babies to be able to do that. So I just decided to sign up for a training. And turns out that when I went to the doula training, I was 6 weeks pregnant with my son.
That's
so
great.
It worked out that, it was so cool. It was like you were speaking to me the whole time. It was really neat. It was like a little birth class for me. It was so cool. And so I just loved it. I just felt like everything you said the entire weekend resonated with me. And I took I think I wrote down every single word that came out of your mouth, and I just thought, like, this is the calling that's on my life, is to be a doula. I'm supposed to do this, and I'm going to make it happen. And at the time, I was working for an orthodontic office, a great practice here, and I absolutely love my job, love my boss. But I decided that when my son was about 10 months old, I just needed to quit, and I needed to pursue doula work, and then just go for it. And so Morgan and I decided to start our own doula practice, and we're called Kindred Spirits Doula Services. And we serve family. Isn't that cool? Yeah, I'm so happy with it. Morgan came up with that, and I just felt like it was so sweet because we're kindred spirits. We feel like you need to be kindred spirits with your clients.
Yes.
Really felt like, to have that connection is so important, and that's really how we want to practice is making sure that we have that really close connection with our clients. And we know that people are inviting us into such a sacred time, such a pivotal time in their lives. And so I don't think I said this before, but we are based out of a suburb from Raleigh, North Carolina.
Right.
Yeah. So we serve families all over the Triangle. And so if you want a doula, check out our website.
That's right. So is it kindredbirths.com?
It is kindredspiritsdoula.com.
Okay. Thank you for correcting that. Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, so when I became pregnant with my son, immediately, like the day after I took the test, I hired Morgan to be our doula. It was awesome. I could not wait to ask her to be my doula, and so she supported me throughout the entire pregnancy. She was my on text her late at night with questions about weird, Charlie horses and whatever. And she was an amazing support system for me the entire time. She went to one of our birth classes with us, which was super cool. And so we just really enjoyed kind of furthering our relationship during my pregnancy. It was just a cool, different partnership that we had when she was supporting us. And my husband was super stoked to have her be our doula. And it's so cute. He will stand on, he's not a soapboxy kind of person, but now he will tell anybody that will listen to him about hiring a doula.
I think that's so great.
Yeah, it's so cute to hear him talk about it. And I think I've told you this before, Therese, but we kind of joke around that if Morgan hadn't been our doula, that Beckham would still be in my belly, because I don't think we could have done it without her. And so she was amazing. So I guess with that little background, I guess we'll just dive into how Beckham got here. Yeah, so Beckham I was measuring ahead for a while, so I kind of had wrapped I know that doesn't always mean anything, but I had wrapped my mind around the fact, like, okay, we might have this baby just a little bit early, but I'm a first-time mom, so who really knows? When I was 38 weeks and 4 days, I woke up at like 2:15 in the morning with a little trickle of fluid on my leg, and I was like, ugh, this is embarrassing. I'm like peeing myself now. This is the glamorous part of pregnancy, I suppose. But then when I went to the bathroom, I had that movie-style gush of fluid, and I was like, holy crap, I think my water broke. Like, how did this happen? So I had Joseph come over, and I said, evaluate this puddle with me. I want to make sure I didn't just like pee or something. And before I called the midwife, and they had told us to give them a call if contractions had started or if your water breaks. And so I call, and I had gotten to know all of the midwives in the practice really well, except this one midwife that I had never met before, and I think she was a little bit new, and that was the one that answered the phone when I called. And so I was a little bit nervous, but I thought, well, no, you don't know her, just give her a chance. And so she told me to go back to sleep, to get a lots of rest, especially since I wasn't having any contractions at this point. So after my water broke, nothing happened, except what they don't really express that much is that your water continues to trickle after it breaks. And so that was still happening, but other than that, nothing really happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had texted Morgan, and she had told me, like, if something happens in the middle of the night, you can call me if you want to. But I just thought to myself, well, nothing exciting is going on, and if contractions start and they're pretty regular, then I'll call her. But I don't want to wake her up for no reason. So I just sent her a text message just to say, hey, my water broke, but I'm going to go back to sleep, which was a lie. We did not end up going back to sleep.
Which is such a shame, because we do know that when it's your first baby, it's really hard to relax and just go back to sleep. But
yes,
that conserving energy and doing life, which means sleeping at that point. Yeah, but I get it.
I know. I know. And in my head, I'm like, Dana, you've just got to go back to sleep. I would tell myself, like, this is super important for you to go back to sleep, and I could not go
No.
back to sleep. And now in hindsight, I wish that I had like had a glass of wine or
Mm-hmm.
something like
Mm-hmm.
that. And like, but I just, my mind was racing, and I was just like excited. We were going to meet our baby, and Joseph and I were, snuggling and staring at the ceiling together and talking about how our family was going to change. And it was sweet. But looking back on that, I was like, ugh, that was dumb. Not to go back to sleep. But we did end up snoozing a little bit for, like an hour or two, and it was fine. But the morning rolls around, nothing was happening. Lunchtime rolls around, so about noon, nothing was happening. So I called the midwife back at noon, like she asked me to, and I told her that we weren't having any contractions, nothing was really changing at all. And so she told me, okay, go ahead and drink some castor oil in some orange juice, and hopefully that'll get things moving for you. So we did that, and castor oil isn't super fun. It's not horrible, but it kind of cleans you out a little bit, which is
Yeah.
gross, but it is what it is. It's nothing in labor is super glamorous, I
Yeah.
feel like. So,
Yeah.
so this is a safe place to say that, I think. But so that was okay. And the castor oil didn't kickstart any intense contractions, but it did start causing some mild, kind of crampy contractions. So at this point, we were still at home. Morgan had joined us. She lived an hour away, and so we had already decided that she was going to come to our house before we were going to head to the birth center. So she came over, and it's so sweet. She baked Beckham a birthday cake. So we have pictures. It was just so cute and special because Morgan's we're so close, and so she's basically going to be Beckham's aunt. So it's just cute to have kind of those memories of her doing that for him. And we were going to share it with the hospital staff or the birth center staff. Um, and so at this point, we head to the birth center around 4 o'clock. So we had some time. It was about 2 to 4. We walked outside a little bit. We let our dog run around before we were going to leave for a little while. And I had done like a little bit of lunges and stuff like that. But again, I was just having these really inconsistent, super mild contractions that just felt like period cramps. Nothing. I felt like I couldn't even call them contractions because they weren't hurting at all. So we get to the birth center. I met the midwife. She got there a little bit after us, so we had some time outside to walk around, and the doors were locked. So we were walking stairs and stuff like that, to try to get things moving. So we get in, and I don't want to say anything ugly about this midwife, but I think the best way I can phrase it is just that I don't feel like we meshed very well. I just don't feel like our vibes were really on the same page, which is such a shame because I loved all of the other midwives that I had met throughout the pregnancy. And so,
But it's such a good example also as to why having a doula is so important,
mm-hmm.
because we never, your client doesn't know who they inevitably are going to have at their birth. And
Yeah.
at least you knew Morgan and knew her well, and she knew you well, so you had that continuity of compassionate care with
Yes.
you at all times.
Absolutely. I love that. Yeah, I love that you brought that up. And that's exactly how I felt too. I felt like, okay, well, I don't know her, but I have my team that I do know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just my husband, it's my doula, and it's my birth photographer, who was a good friend of mine since I was like 10 years old. So I felt very safe and very loved and very supported by my team. And so I shook it off when I met her. I'm like, well, I got to give her a chance. I'm not going to, who knows, maybe I'll love her. She was listening for the baby's heartbeat, and she had this look of concern on her face the entire time, which, I feel like it's important to kind of know what your facial expressions are doing when you're with a laboring woman. I feel like personally that's something that's important to me. And I have a very expressive face, so that's something I've had to like learn how to control a little bit.
And was your baby having any signs of distress or anything that caused
no.
that concern?
No, he was doing great. He had this little happy, bouncy heartbeat. It sounded awesome. And I had to ask her, like, is everything okay? You look kind of worried. No, it's fine. He's fine. And she was just kind of a flat kind of personality, which I'm a very energetic person. And I was excited about meeting my baby and getting labor started and all these things. And so I just, from the beginning, I'm like, well, maybe we're not going to be best friends, but it's okay. So at this point, she had me get on a breast pump and then do 30 minutes on, 30 minutes off. and then she had me take some herbs. And then what is really sweet was Morgan, when we got there, the birth center is already really beautiful. We went to Baby and Company in Cary, North Carolina, and it looks like a spa. It's gorgeous, like dark floors and this big white beautiful tub and this really pretty bed. I mean, it just really you just feel kind of cozy and homey there. But she hung these really cute little twinkly Christmas lights in the room, and they had these Pilates bars that you can kind of hang off of, and so she strung our lights on there.
Nice.
And she had per my request, she put some lavender oil in a diffuser, and it smelled really beautiful in the room, and she kind of kept the lights dim and made sure that I was drinking water and that I was eating and really taking care of myself. And so that was something that I was
so important.
Oh yeah, she was awesome. It was like once things got started, it was like between every single contraction, she would like stick water in my face, and then she'd make me take a sip. And for a couple times, I was like, ugh, I don't really want this, but I knew it was important, and I was glad that she was taking care of me that way, because I wasn't thinking about it.
Yeah.
And I could just see how easy it would be to get really dehydrated or to get really hungry if you're in the zone and you don't have somebody thinking about that for you. So she was awesome, and it was fun because when we were trying to get labor started and we were doing the breast pump and the herbs, between when we were off the breast, I keep saying nobody else was on the breast pump except for me. but when I would get off the breast pump, Morgan would suggest that we play Simon Says, and so we would jog around the room a little bit, or we would dance, or we would do squats, or it would end up just being really fun, and we have some really just sweet memories of laboring together that way. And all of that movement and the breast pump and the herbs all worked together, and labor got started, and I started having really consistent contractions that were manageable at this point. They weren't super intense, but they were happening, and they were getting more intense and longer and stronger and closer together like you want. And so I was feeling really encouraged. And I didn't mention this before, but when we got there, I was 3 centimeters dilated.
Okay.
And then 2 hours later, she checked me, and I was 5 centimeters dilated. And so things were kind of
at least changing. Yeah.
Yeah, they were changing, and I was so happy to see that. And at this point, everything was feeling really normal, and we were able to utilize a lot of just little tricks that Morgan had up her sleeve about different positions to try. And she would say, why don't you try to, with Joseph's support, why don't you try to get into a deep squat and do a couple contractions that way, which was awful. And I was like, ugh, I don't really like doing that, but it got things moving. It was great. We labored on the toilet. We labored in the shower. Joseph got in there with me, and we had some alone time together, which was so sweet, and noticed some strong contractions after kissing him for a while, which was pretty fun. And so yeah, just kind of sweet parts of labor that I fondly look back on, and everything was feeling intense, but I loved the break between contractions. I felt like normal, and I felt happy and really positive, and so it got to a point where things were really picking up in intensity, and I wanted to get in the tub, and I thought that the tub was going to be amazing. I thought I would love it. I thought I'd be one of those moms that just like hung out in the tub and then pushed their baby out in the water, and and I hated it. It was the worst thing. It made me so hot. It made me so angry. That was the first time I said the F word in labor, was sitting in the tub. It just did not resonate with me. I didn't want to be in there. And so Morgan was great. She kept a cold, like ice cold washcloths on the back of my neck and on my chest, and she would put it on my forehead, and she would fan me with a clipboard. She'd make sure I had cold water to drink. And just, she was doing an amazing job, but I didn't like it in there.
Was it helping you with contraction relief though at all?
I think it was.
Okay.
Yeah,
but just the tub itself was not resonating with you, but because of the heat and everything, but it was giving you some kind of relief.
Yeah, it helped. I liked the warm water, and the reason why I love the shower so much was because I did not, and I think this is the reason why I didn't like the tub, was because I didn't like to be laying down. So it didn't feel good to me at all to be like leaning forward at all, or to be laying down. I wanted to be like standing up or like sitting upright on a birth ball.
And then why were you still? I'm asking this really. Yeah, I'm curious. Why stay in the tub then?
I don't know. In my Laborland brain, I felt stuck in there for some reason. I felt like I couldn't get out.
Did they know you didn't like the tub?
After a while, I told them. I was kind of like, I really don't like this. I'm really hot and uncomfortable. And then that's when Morgan and Joseph were like, you can get out. if you want to get out, you can get out. If you don't like the tub, you can change it.
Yeah.
But for some reason in my mind, I had reached a point where I wasn't really thinking clearly.
Sure.
I don't think.
Gee, I'm really surprised by that statement.
I know. What do you mean? People aren't completely clear, and during labor, they make rational choices about things. Yeah. So it was definitely, and then now I know why. So when I was in the tub, I had a really intense contraction, and I felt the urge to push. And so the midwife was like, "Oh, that's great. Listen to your body and your baby." And she actually did say, "Your baby's going to be here soon." And I was like, "Okay, cool." But then she checked me and I was only at an 8. So I thought, when she said that to me, I thought, crap. Well, that's not good. Like, I'm feeling this really intense, uncontrollable urge to push, and I can't do anything about it. And at this point, the contractions were 30 seconds apart. So I had a little break in between them, but they were almost on top of each other. And I panicked at that point, and I just remember looking up. Joseph was behind me, kind of steadying my shoulders, because I was kind of bouncing around the water a little bit, and I liked having him behind me. But I was making eye contact with Morgan, and I just looked at her, and I know I had this panicky look in my eyes. And she said, "It's okay. She said, you have to keep your eyes open. You have to make eye contact with me, and we're gonna breathe together, and we're not gonna push." And I'm like, okay, well, that's like telling me not to sneeze or not to throw up. Like, I have to push. I mean, I don't know how to. So, but she was able to help me though, and so she was able to keep me from pushing. But it took so much concentration, and it took so much effort, and I just had to stay completely locked on her. And every time I would close my eyes, I would start to push.
Yeah, that's where again the importance. Not that your husband could not have done that with you, but I do know that really the objectivity of a doula really makes it more likely that you can get through that than a partner, just because it is so intense, that feeling. You do need someone constantly in your face to breathe through that with you and keep you on track. And with the partner, with your husband, though he would have been trying, your resistance to him might have been greater.
Yes, it would. I know for a fact that would have happened. Well, and also, I'm not sure he would have known to do that with me.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I don't know if he would have, if because he's not a doula, he wouldn't have known
the skill for that.
Oh, well, yeah, he wouldn't have thought to himself, okay, well, she's not supposed to push, she just needs to breathe through it. I don't even know if he would have thought that to himself. He would have just thought, oh, well, this isn't good. And then I would have just struggled the whole time, and I don't know what would have happened. I think our outcome honestly would have been different if Morgan hadn't been there with us. Because I think I would have continued pushing, and I think I would have hurt my cervix, and I would have, things could have gone downhill from there. And you know that if you push before you're fully dilated, you can experience swelling, which that started to happen. And so I stayed at 8 centimeters for a long time, and I pushed, I had the urge to push with back-to-back contractions for about 4 hours before the midwife came back in, and she was not super present throughout labor. At the beginning, I liked that because we were in our groove. I had Joseph, I had Morgan with me, and we were doing really great. But then when I hit the point where I started pushing before I was, quote, allowed to or ready to, I kind of thought, where the heck is she? Like, why? I mean, I feel like I'm needing direction. I feel like I need help to be able to control the situation, and I just felt like she wasn't around.
Again, what a good thing that Morgan was there. And I would only, like, in defense of the midwife, not knowing this person at all, I would like to think that had Morgan not been there, maybe they would have been more present, but maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe
not.
We just
really seemed like we had our crap together.
Yeah, I don't know, but that still doesn't. I hear what you're saying, even though you did have your really tight crew there, you also felt it would have been nice to have her presence also as the other person helping with guiding the experience. And I would assume that Morgan had to be somewhat, having been in the role that Morgan was in with you as far as not pushing and helping someone breathe through that intense feeling, pretty firm with you at times.
She was, yes. Yeah, thank you for saying that. She had to get firm with me several times because I would start to, honestly, sometimes I would just be like, screw it, I'm just going to push. I just can't, I don't have the energy to avoid this anymore. And she would have to get in my face and say, open your eyes, do not close your eyes, do not push right now. You're not going to push right now. We're going to do this together, and I'm with you, and I'm breathing with you, and Joseph's here, but you can't push right now. And I can tend to be, not like, sensitive where I'm going to like break down and cry if you say something to me, but like I don't typically respond super great to people like yelling at me. And she wasn't yelling, but she had to get really firm with me and really help me through that. And it was exactly what I needed. And I feel like this is one of the things that has made me really want to get to know my clients really well as a doula, because I feel like I feel like she could use her judgment in that situation, even though she knew that typically I respond better to more sensitive approaches. This time she knew exactly what I needed. And I never once thought, like, I wasn't hurt or offended that she was talking that way to me. I just thought, oh my gosh, like, she really has to do that to get my attention. And I'm glad that she's doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was awesome. I was really, and she just knows what she's doing. She's just a great doula. And she's still relatively new as well. She hasn't been doing this forever, but she's just one of those people that it just seems to be naturally what she's meant to do. And so I was really grateful for that. So it got to a point where I felt like I was getting kind of out of control, and I started to not feel well. And they took my temperature, and I had a little bit of a fever. So with that being the case, the midwife came in and she started kind of monitoring things a little bit closer. She would listen to baby's heartbeat more, and he was still doing great. And then they were giving me some IV fluids to try to get my fever down. And at that point, the midwife told me that she felt like we had exhausted all of our options at the birth center. She had told me that she wanted me to try the breast pump again and do the herbs again to try to strengthen the contractions, because at this point I was still stuck at an 8 with my cervix was starting to swell, and I still had this little lip. So it looked like I was dilating kind of asymmetrically. And so she was like, I feel like we've done everything we can do at a birth center. I feel like we need to transfer you to the hospital. And it's been so long now, and now you're starting to get a fever, and just things aren't, you stay at a birth center when birth is going really well and when things are kind of like uneventful, but stuff like this, she was telling me, she said, I feel like, we've kind of crossed over into needing some more help. You might need some more interventions. You might need Pitocin. And she did start talking to me about needing a C-section too. So I said, okay, cool. And at that point, I really felt at peace about it, because as much as we wanted to deliver at the birth center, we wanted to get him here safely. And I mean, you can't push out a baby if you can't dilate. So I felt like something has to change. I feel like I was sick of being at the birth center and not doing anything except trying to make it through these contractions and then not see any change. So,
and can I just say also, at this moment, Dana, just as this reminder that I talk about in workshops, and I'm pretty sure I've talked about it in podcasts also. So you were at 8 centimeters for like 4 hours or so?
At this point, it was like 6 hours.
6 hours,
It's been a long time.
And so this is, again, the reminder of why we don't talk about time during labor, about how much longer somebody has, and why we don't say, and I stress this, like, please don't say when somebody gets to 8, 9, 10 centimeters, you're almost done, because we have no idea if somebody is almost done. And also, I always point out, almost done in your mind would have been like holding your baby in your arms, not almost done dilating. You still have to push. But here was the example of 8 centimeters. Typically we think, okay, maybe in the next hour you'll be ready to push your baby out, and you're getting closer to that place. But if 6 hours goes by and you're still at the same that you were 6 hours earlier. So how discouraging to hear that, and it not happen. So just
absolutely,
just that reminder.
Oh, it's a great reminder, and it's one of the things that that I took away from the training, that I just tucked in my back pocket for life in general, is you just always tell people the truth. You don't say what you hope to be true. you don't, I mean, in the name of being positive, you don't lie to people, you know, and not on purpose. I don't mean that in like a malicious way, but do you know what I mean? Like, just not saying like, oh, well, you're going to have an easy pregnancy and you're going to have an easy birth and your baby's going to sleep at night and you're going to have a great time breastfeeding. I mean, you can be hopeful for all those things, but you just tell people in general, and especially as a doula, you tell your clients what you know to be true and you leave it at that. I mean, I would have been, and thankfully, the only person that said anything like that to me was the midwife. She said something along the lines of, "Oh, well, yeah, but you're 8 centimeters, and just you'll probably get past this point pretty soon." I mean, she said something kind of flippant like that, and I was just like, yeah, okay, whatever, because I knew like you have no way of knowing that, and so I just let that kind of like fall off, sort of. I just didn't hold on to those words, but I was glad that like the people that I was really listening to weren't saying that to me, because that could have been really discouraging for me in that moment. And then just looking back on it, I would have been kind of irked, like, well, but you guys said it was going to be so quick after I got to 8 centimeters, and here we are, 12 hours later, and no baby. You know?
Exactly.
Yeah. So it was. I was glad that Morgan and Joseph never said that to me. They just were kind of like, we're going to take this one contraction at a time, and we're just going to keep on keeping on at this point. So we transferred to the hospital. And one thing that was a little bit strange was, so when Joseph, so we were able to, I'm sorry, I'm all over the place. We were able to drive to the hospital ourselves. It was very close by, and we didn't need an ambulance. And so we were able to park the car and walk in together. But Morgan really still needed to be in my face helping me breathe. So Joseph was checking us in, Morgan was helping me, and then we walked to our room. And by the time we got there, I was kind of like, where's our midwife? And she had left, and she hadn't really said anything to me. She like told our birth photographer that she was going to go pick up her son at the airport or something like that. But I had been told throughout the pregnancy that if you had to transfer to the hospital, that a midwife would go with you, and they would stay with you throughout the labor, and they would deliver your baby unless you needed a C-section, in which case they would first assist. And so I was very confused when we got to the hospital, and like, where was she?
So she had not communicated with you one-on-one that
no.
When you were leaving, I will not be coming with you. I'm sorry.
No.
Nothing.
No, so she went to the hospital. So sorry, that was confusing. So she went to the hospital and like dropped us off, kind of like stood with Joseph while he checked us in, but then she left without saying anything to me. Yeah, and totally not a reflection on the kind of midwifery care that we received throughout pregnancy. So I was a little bit surprised by that she didn't say directly to me like, "Hey, I have to go for XYZ reason." That was a little strange. And I didn't have much time in the moment to really think about it because I was still feeling like I had to push, but it ended up being okay because the midwife that was on call at the hospital was a midwife that used to work at the birth center, and so I had met her before, and I love her. She has this amazing energy. She's super sweet and funny. My husband loved her. She was the one that did our tour when we visited, and so we got to talk to her a lot before I was even pregnant, and she remembered us, and she was just new energy that we needed, just fresh, new energy, because all of us were exhausted. And so she sat down and she said, "Okay, we don't have a lot of time to talk about this before your next contraction comes, but she said, you're doing amazing. I've heard the way your labor is going. I know you have a little bit of a fever. I know that you're still at 8 centimeters. I know that things aren't going exactly the way you were hoping, but what I would recommend to you is to get an epidural." And she did tell me, she said, "Listen, I'm a firm believer in normal physiological birth, like leaving things alone. But," she said, "in certain situations, I will highly recommend an epidural, and your situation is exactly when I would do that. When you've got, long labor so far and not a lot of progression, now you've got swelling of the cervix, you've got the urge to push, you're tired, you need to, your body needs to rest so that, we can continue to move forward and continue to progress." She talked about starting Pitocin to really get my contractions stronger again because my uterus was tired. And so at this time, Morgan was still helping me breathe, and she was helping us get settled into the room. And, we got to talk about our options together. And so we got to discuss whether or not we wanted an epidural. And I felt like, if this midwife, I really do trust her and I know her and she wants me to do this. And I, look at Joseph and Morgan and I'm like, I'm a little teary-eyed, and I'm like, are you guys going to be mad at me or disappointed in me if I get this epidural? Because I was so concerned about that for whatever reason. I had said out loud that I wanted an unmedicated birth, and I thought if I veered away from that,
I
that I was going to
know.
be letting
I
somebody
know.
down. Yeah, which looking back on that, and when people say that to me, like my heart just
I know.
breaks a little bit. Like hearing somebody say that, you're just like, no,
No
no, of
way.
course
Of
not, of
course
course
not.
not. Yeah, and it's so funny that sometimes you don't have the same grace with yourself that you would have with someone else. Like where if somebody else said that to me, I would be like, oh, don't be silly, you're amazing, and whatever choices you make in your
And I'm
labor are the
sure
right
that's
ones.
what they said to you.
They did, yes. They were like, Dana, stop it. And Joseph was just like, Dana, get the epidural so you can like take a nap or whatever. And they reassured me
And this is
that
why
it
I
was right
also
thing to
say in the prenatal period,
do. Mhm.
make sure that is also communicated, before, that if
Yes.
your labor ever changes, I just want you to know I'm there to support you
Mhm.
with your decision making, so that because we know that
Yeah.
even when somebody hears that, the
Mhm.
chances are really good that they still will often feel like this apology needed moment, but
Right.
we just want to put it in there before it ever even happens, if it ever were to
Yeah.
happen, and just that reminder again, like, of course not. Remember, we talked
Right.
about this before. It's not
Right.
about me, it's about you and how you're handling things.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's so great. And actually, I had an interview last night with a couple who hired me to be their doula, which is super cool.
That's wonderful.
Beautiful couple. Yes, it was so great to meet with them, and I cannot wait to support them. But we talked about that a lot. She kind of said the same thing. Her first labor went kind of the same way mine did, and so with the second baby, she's kind of like, ugh, well, yeah, but I really needed an epidural last time, and I'm kind of, I don't know if I want to say that I don't want one. And I said, well, you don't have to. I said, you can have goals and have certain things that are important to you, but then you make decisions for yourself during labor,
Good.
and your husband and I will support you, whatever those choices are, and those will be the right choices for you in that
Right.
moment, and we will support you regardless, and you get to decide what happens in that moment. I said, and so we talked about the BRAIN acronym and really knowing that these choices are hers to make, because it's her body and it's her baby and it's her birth, and so we got to talk a lot about that, and it was really
Good.
great because I had those things said to me too in my labor, and
Right.
it made a big difference to me that somebody was saying, if this is what you want to do it, and you don't have to justify it, you don't have to apologize for anything, and it ended up being a fantastic decision. I was really happy to get the epidural. We got to take a nap. We got to kind of collect ourselves a little bit, and my nurse was super great, and she gave me a popsicle and Jello, not one or the other. So it's the little things that you remember about labor, but I was like, I just want to like kiss you on your face for giving me both of these things. And so she was amazing, and our team was great at the hospital, and our new midwife was amazing, and we loved her. And so they started me on Pitocin, and at one point I had gone kind of backwards to a 7. So I don't know if that's because it was a different person checking me, or if it was because that
Sometimes.
can be, that can be, people have different interpretations of things, or if it was because I swelled some more and then
Right.
who knows. But at that point, they had me on IV fluids. They were keeping a close eye on my temperature. I think I had 100.2 fever, and I think they told me when it gets to 100.4, that's when they have to just go ahead and wheel you in for a C-section. And tell me this, is that because they're concerned about seizures?
No, they're concerned about
Why is that?
infection.
Infection in the uterus. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
and that it's going to
Cool.
affect the baby. But, that I would hope that's not a hard set rule, because
Mhm.
the baby is the one to determine, if the baby is showing
Mhm.
different heart rates,
Mhm.
whether it be decelerations or accelerations,
Uh-huh.
then that would be more concern.
Okay.
I think, and I'm not a primary care provider, but
Right.
there
Mhm.
are other ways of judging. And 100.4, yes, is considered a fever, but the truth
Mhm.
is, it's
It's really low.
yeah, it's
Mhm.
the lowest
Yeah.
of the lowest fevers you can have. And so,
Right.
did they want you on antibiotics when you got there?
No.
No.
Mm-mm.
And
They didn't do
see,
that, which is great.
yeah, and see, not that we want people on antibiotics, but that's always also another alternative, is they,
Okay. Uh-huh.
we'll keep the possibility of an infection down,
Right.
if that were the case. But they were probably
Yeah.
going more on 24 hour. It's been more than 24 hours that your water has been broken, and you're showing the first signs of a fever would be their reason for saying not just the fever, it would be the 24 plus hours, which again shouldn't be a hard set rule, but is for many providers. But go ahead with your story. So you're...
Yeah, well, and at that point, now I'm in the hospital, and my midwife was being overseen by an OB that wasn't super excited that I was there that long with my water broken with not a lot of progress. So they gave me a lot of Pitocin, and I don't remember how much they gave me. I was not paying attention to that. But at one point, so I had made it to 9. So I did end up progressing, which was great. But then I got kind of stuck there for a little while with this anterior lip that wouldn't really go away. And so Margaret talked to us about, okay, I want to up your Pitocin one more time. I want to come back in an hour. And she said, I want to start discussing the possibility of a C-section. She said, we're not exactly there yet, but your cervix has to dilate all the way to be able to push a baby out. And if we never get there, then we might need to start talking about other options. And she said, but we have time, and I want you guys to talk about it together. And she was really wonderful. And so Joseph and I talked with Morgan about it, and I was like, what do you guys think? And it was good to have that extra person to have Morgan there as a kind of a sounding board too, where, Joseph's emotionally invested in all of this, and he's tired, and he bless his heart, he's such a sweet man. After we took our nap, he just like cried on me for a while. He was just like, this is so hard, and I'm having such a hard time watching you going through this, and you're doing such a great job, blah blah. But I was like, oh boy, like we need another rational thinker between the
No, this is another good reason. Exactly what he was going through is so important. He's giving birth, and he's watching the person he loves giving birth, and to have that objective person there is so important.
Oh yeah, it was crucial for us, and to be able to have that person to talk to, where I felt better after taking a nap, but you're still going through this for a couple of days, and all the emotions that come with it and everything, and just adjusting to the fact that the birth isn't going the way that you were hoping it would, and and especially being like a birth nerd, I feel like some of us can tend to be like, everything's going to go perfect, and it's going to be this, dreamy water birth at a birth center. And then if it doesn't go that way, you have to really adjust your expectations of how things are actually going versus the way you wanted them to. And so just having somebody there to kind of steady us in all of that, and just to talk about, okay, well, let's ask them about this. Let's talk about our pros and our cons, and let's just see how things go. And so Morgan was very obviously didn't tell us what decisions to make. I mean, Joseph and I got to make those choices on our own, but it was cool to have somebody else who I trusted that had training in these things, to be able to say well, what do you think about this? And tell me your honest opinion. And so we all just kind of decided together, well, let's just see what happens in the next hour. We'll see what this Pitocin does. We'll see and Beckham was doing great. His heart rate was doing great the whole time, even after the Pitocin was up in really a high dosage. He was doing great. His heart rate was fine. And so that was something that I always said to myself was, well, if I'm doing okay and he's doing okay, I want to give it time.
Okay, good.
And so I had told Margaret that too, and she said, yep, I'm on the same page as you. She said, that's exactly right. If baby's not in distress and you're not in distress and everything's going fine, we do have plenty of time to discuss our options. And I loved that. I didn't feel any pressure from anybody about this. And I really got to a place emotionally where I felt like, okay, if we end up needing a C-section to get this baby out, we have literally done everything that we can think of. We've utilized all of the options here. And so I will be at peace however this baby is supposed to get here. We've fought for, and I don't like the word fight. It's kind of, combative. But, we've really pushed hard, and we've worked really hard for a vaginal delivery. But if it doesn't happen, then I know that this is just Beckham's story. It's just how he was supposed to get here. And so we got really close to needing a C-section. Margaret came in to check me, and I was fully expecting her to say that I hadn't progressed at all, but she was able to push the last little lip of my cervix away, and I was able to push. And everybody in the room cried when she said that I was complete. And I just could not believe that she was telling me that I was going to get to push my baby out. It was awesome. And so, Morgan was on one side of me, and they were holding my feet, which I said I didn't want, and they were counting, which I said I didn't want. And it's just so funny how things can go completely different than you were anticipating, but it was okay. Our nurse was really cool. She was counting kind of loud at me, which I really didn't want, but I just got in that, in that zone of like,
I
I'm going to
know,
push
it's
my baby out.
so hard.
Yeah. Well, I think if things hadn't gone the way they had and I wasn't so tired, if we weren't like 2 days into this, I would have said like, hey, can you not count at me? I would rather do what my body's telling me to do, because at that point the epidural had worn off. So at that point, Beckham started having some decelerations in his heart rate. And when I started pushing, there was like 20 people in the room, like a ton of people, and including the supervising obstetrician that was over Margaret. And so Margaret was sitting, and she was helping me deliver Beckham, but she started telling me like, okay, you have to push as hard as you can, but like my body was, I wanted to slow down the pushing at that point. It would get really intense, and I could just feel my body wanting me to ease off a little bit. And I know at that point he was crowning. But they kept telling me like, you have to push harder, you have to push harder, you have to push harder. And so I started crying, and I was just like, I'm doing the best I can. I'm trying to listen to my body. I'm trying to do what I'm supposed to do. And then at that point they just said, his heart rate isn't doing well right now, and you just really have to get him out. You have to get him out in the next contraction. You've got to get his head out. And then they started talking about an episiotomy, which at that moment I had like an inward panicky moment where I just looked up at Joseph, and I did not even have the ability to say exactly what I was feeling, but I just had tears in my eyes, and I just told him, I said, but I don't want them to cut me. I've thought about this, and this is like the only thing that I was afraid about with labor. The only thing was needing an episiotomy. I wanted to avoid everything. I mean, everything else would have been fine except an episiotomy. I just couldn't wrap my mind around that. I just heard recovery is terrible, and how then with subsequent deliveries it can open right up like a zipper, and just all these things. And I was so upset that they were saying that to me, and I would push as hard as I could, and I would move him, and I could feel him move a lot, but then it just wasn't enough. And so Margaret kind of told me like, hey Dana, we just really need to get him out, like, and she did end up asking me if it was okay with me if she gave me an episiotomy. And I didn't remember that, which is really interesting. I didn't remember having that conversation with her. That part of it was a little bit of a blur for me. So afterwards, I felt a little bit, not violated, but I did feel kind of like, I didn't remember a lot of conversation happening in that moment about it. And so I did have to process through, like, I feel like they just kind of did it, and I had to be okay with it afterwards. But, in talking with Joseph and Morgan, they said, no, Margaret made eye contact with you, and you like nodded your head and said it was okay. And I was like, oh, all right, well, all right.
Well, see, I'm glad you had somebody there, though, who could help you know that what the story was. Yes,
yeah. And that was something that was really helpful for me, was afterwards because Joseph was, he's a beautiful person. It's just, but he was such a like ball of emotion about the whole thing that I felt like Morgan was well, and rightfully so, right? I mean, he loves me and he loves this baby, and he was working hard right with me, and he was exhausted too. And he's such a tender person that it really affected him. The birth really affected him. And so having Morgan to be able to, we met so many times after, postpartum, and we're, she's my best friend, so I see her a lot, but I really like made appointments with her to like, I need to sit down and talk with you about what happened in the birth. And it was so long and so many things happened that I told her some of the things that I don't use the word traumatizing lightly. There were like a couple things that I felt traumatized by a little bit. And the episiotomy situation really had me feeling traumatized for a little while. And to be able to talk to her, and she said, no, like, you discussed it and you gave her permission to do that, and you said you were okay with it. That made me feel better. So it was great to have her to be able to process through everything afterwards from a different perspective. And not that Morgan tells my story for me, because she really doesn't. She finds ways to, well, she listens really well, and then she'll respond and tell me her perspective if I ask her for it, but she's very careful not to tell me the way things were at my birth,
That's so important.
Yeah. And I know you talk about that a lot. And I listened to a podcast from, I think, last week, the most recent one, about traumatic births. And Heather on there was, she talked a lot about that, about how when you tell somebody else's story, you take away their version of it. You take away their ability to be the writer of their story. And so I was really grateful that Morgan really gave me space to process through everything, but I was glad that I also had somebody else who was there for everything and could help me, like, some of those fuzzy details.
Right,
she could
fill
help
in
me.
that detail.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. Fill in the gaps a little bit. So that was amazing. And but towards the end there, I did get a very small episiotomy, and then he got super mildly stuck for a really short period of time. It was a super, super, super mild shoulder dystocia. I don't even know if I'm allowed to call it that, but that's what they told me it was. But they kind of, once his head was out, Margaret said, he's stuck. And then these nurses came and kind of moved around Morgan and Joseph and yanked my knees back by my ears and like pushed on my belly and just kind of pulled him out, which was a little crazy. And then they put him on my belly for like 2 seconds and then whisked him away off to the side, in the little bassinet to make sure he was okay. But by the time he got to the bassinet, he was crying and he was pink and he was great. And Joseph went over and talked with him. And this was another reason why I was super, super, super happy to have Morgan there, because she stayed with me while Joseph was with Beckham. So she cried with me, and I'm going to get teary-eyed talking about her crying with me. But it was amazing to have her there with me. And she said, I did say something sassy, and I didn't remember doing this, and I felt bad. Sorry, Morgan, if you're listening. She said, "Oh, Dana, he's so beautiful." And I said, "Well, I wouldn't know because I can't see him." So I guess I got mad that they.
Sure, no, that was a real response that you were having.
Yeah, I felt bad afterwards because I hoped that Morgan wasn't, that she didn't feel like that was directed at her. But now when we talk about it, she's like, "No, you were." I mean, and even Morgan will tell me now, since I asked her about it, she said that she was kind of wondering if he was healthy and fine, why they weren't giving him back to me. They weighed him, they did all of his stuff off, they measured him and cleaned him up and all that stuff before they gave him back to me. And I was getting stitched up and everything, but then they gave him to me, and they put him right on my chest, and I got to check him out, and he looked like me, which was really surprising, because I just thought, when I knew he was a boy, I thought he would look just like my husband, and he came out looking like a little boy version of me, and he was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. And I was like, "Holy crap, he looks like me, what is this?" And it was just such a phenomenal moment, and so amazing to have my husband there and my doula there, and to just have gone through this phenomenal experience together that did not go the way it was supposed to in my mind.
But the way you thought it was going to go.
That's right, the way I thought it was going to go. But it ended up being, I have so many beautiful memories from his birth, and it lit this fire in my heart about being a doula afterwards, because I just sincerely think that we would have had a C-section without Morgan. I know there's no way of knowing if that's true, but I really feel like we would not have been able to cope as long. We would not have been able to make the decisions that we made if we didn't have her present. And there's no way that we would have more kids without her. Like, we would just, if she's not available, we just won't have more kids.
No pressure, Morgan. No pressure at all.
I know, right? Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so I'm so happy that I got to share about our birth story and how Morgan has, and also this is really interesting too, not even just like immediately postpartum, but I do this thing where I minimize the severity of situations in the name of being positive, and then it all hits me later. And I don't mean to do that. I don't do it on purpose, but
that's who you are.
That's what I do. Yeah, it's what I do. I try to do whatever I can to keep it together and to make sure that I'm not putting my emotional burdens on somebody else and I tend to just be like we recently went through a really challenging situation, and it was a life-threatening situation for me, and I just ended up being like, "Oh, it's going to be fine." And I didn't. And people, when I would tell them about it, they would say like, "Well, that sounds really serious." And I'm like, "Yeah, I guess it was," but it's hard for me to really address when something's serious. So after Beckham's birth, I really squashed down any kinds of negative emotions that I had about how challenging it was, or that things didn't go the way we were hoping they would. And then 6 months postpartum, when I stopped thinking about the birth every day, it hit me all at once that I was really sad about certain parts of his birth. And to be able to call up Morgan And we sat at the park with our kids, and I just said to her, I'm just sad about the way this happened. Can we talk about this again? Can I tell you the birth story again? And can you listen to me? And can I cry with you? And just to have
Yeah,
that
how wonderful.
continued, it was amazing. Yeah. And I don't know if doulas, if there are doulas out there that, would be willing to meet with a client 6 months afterwards to talk about things, but I would like to think that most of us would,
I hope so.
yeah, I think that it was just, and to have her just sit with me and say, you know what, it's okay that you're still processing through things 6 months later. It's okay. Was really beneficial for me. And now she helped me really actually work through those emotions and really heal from certain things. And now I'm able to really feel positive and joyful about Beckham's birth story. And I've worked through those things that made me feel sad before, and now I'm feeling much better. I had that outlet to be able to process through all that stuff with her. And so yeah, if I had to say one thing, I just hire a doula, have a doula, whatever you need to do, have a doula at your birth. And I don't feel like you'd regret it.
I agree, and I think I hear that statement coming from you not as a doula yourself, which definitely is there, but is really as a mother. You're speaking as somebody who gave birth. That you're saying this because it's what we know is that you're in one of the most vulnerable yet empowering but vulnerable periods of your entire life. And to have your partner there with you is, just incredibly lovely, we hope, and supportive and wonderful as well. But we've already talked about your husband and specifically how, as an example, how emotional it can be. So to have somebody there who is going to have a connection to you, but also be able to, give a bit of a distance to that connection and be objective is so important. And then also you did have the lack of continuity of care. And though, it all was fine in the end, had you not had Morgan, we don't know, maybe the midwife at the birth center would have been more present. We don't know whether they would have stayed or not. I can't help but wonder, making no excuse for this whatsoever, because at least a goodbye to you would have been warranted under any circumstances. But I'm thinking maybe she also thought, when she got there and she saw that Margaret was the midwife on call, that she was like, oh, okay, good. Then I can really leave her in good hands. It's like having me there or one of us there. But that doesn't excuse also not, following through and saying, hey, I'm really sorry that I have to leave you. We tell doulas that if they need to leave and have some, you're going to have to make sure you have a replacement though for that person, and you better have a darn good reason why you're leaving, and you're going to make sure your client knows it. So I'm sorry that was the occurrence, and but again, I'm glad that you had that system already set up where you weren't left alone, because even though Margaret sounded wonderful, the midwife who came on, and you had a nice nurse, they weren't present the entire time you were laboring.
No. And they weren't with me that much. They really gave us a lot of space.
Right. And so there you go. We need that. You needed that continual one-on-one support. So
absolutely. That's what I take away from, and I like what you said. I'm not like, hire a doula, like hire me so my business can do well. It's not about that. It's about, I don't care who your doula is. I want you to find somebody who you really connect with, that you feel can support you unconditionally and really give you what you need during labor. And I would just love to see every single woman that wants a doula should be able to have one. And I'm really grateful that we were able to have one. And I think that, I definitely think that things would have been different without her. And like you're saying, I think that if it had just been me and Joseph, and we had gone through the birth center induction, and then the transfer to the hospital, and then the Pitocin and the epidural wearing off, and the decision to get an epidural, and talking about C-sections, and then the episiotomy and the they thought, they didn't know if he was stuck or not. I mean, just all of those things that could have been extremely unsettling for me and Joseph if we hadn't had extra support there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just real briefly.
Yeah.
So now that you hadn't had a client prior to that experience, and you talked a little bit about how it's making you aware. Do you, I guess having a doula has impacted your way of practice and will in the future?
Yeah, for sure. I'm sorry, are you asking me how it's impacted?
Yeah, I mean, have you have any, specific or thoughts about that?
I do. I think that there were a lot of moments during our labor that Morgan was just there. There was obviously, it took a different turn where she was very active, like, in my face, helping me breathe in a good way. But there were a lot of times when she was just knowing that she was there and she was holding the space for me to do what I needed to do with Joseph was really valuable. So for me, it's shown me the importance of reading the situation and reading a client. So my example about when I really needed her to be firm with me, that is different than the way that I would normally resonates with me. And so it really stuck out in my mind, like, okay, I really need to spend a lot of time with clients prenatally, getting to know them and really talking about these things and really preparing for I think just talking with people about the importance of being flexible and being open to however your birth is supposed to go, that you're strong enough to make it through, and you have support behind you, and you have, we're going to talk together and we're going to prepare. So you have tools to really, not be in control of your birth, because a lot of it is uncontrollable. But
right.
I think it's made me really want to have these conversations with clients, not just about like the physiological process of birth and what's going to happen, but about the emotional side of everything and the spiritual side of everything. And just know, like, for a lot of people, and not for everybody, I guess, but for a lot of people, birth can be really transformative, and it can be a really intense, spiritual experience, and it can be obviously a very challenging physical experience, and it can change your relationship. I mean, Joseph and I have a whole new level of closeness after going through labor together. It's only made us better. It's made us better parents. It's made us better partners. It's made us better friends to other people that are expecting babies. We're willing to and excited to share our story with people, and to just ask people genuinely, how are you doing during pregnancy. Like, I think it's made me realize the importance of opening up conversations with people and giving people a place to talk about their concerns, or maybe their fears about labor, and then afterwards to really give people permission to process through things free of judgment.
That's wonderful.
I think is really important. So those are the kind of the things that I took away from our birth, and that I really want to, and I'm a new doula. I'm really new. I just, like, the couple last night that hired me is going to be my second birth. And my first birth was Morgan. She hired me to be her doula, which was so cool. It was the most beautiful. Oh my gosh, it was life-changing to be her doula, and I got to kind of help my niece be born. So it was super cool. I mean, obviously I played a very small role in that, but Morgan gets all the credit there. But so I'm new and I'm starting out, but yeah, I really feel like these are the things that I think the biggest thing is I want to make sure that I have really strong connections with my clients, and they know that they can get judgment-free, unconditional support from me, no matter what turn their labor takes.
Good. Yeah. Well, that sounds wonderful. And what I hope, Dana, is that maybe we'll have you again in the future, where you can share one of, a case study with us about one of the births that you attend, and let us know where you're at in your journey of being a doula and how it's playing out for you. But, for today, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your story. It was really wonderful to hear it, and it was wonderful to hear also the role of the doula and the impact on your experience, but just your story overall was we really appreciate you trusting us to hear the experience and sharing it with so many people who are listening. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Therese. I really appreciate you letting me come on and talk a little bit about our experiences. I really love this podcast, and it's been so beneficial to me, and I just appreciate all the work you're doing.
Well, thanks. I love doing it, but I couldn't be doing it without all of you out there doing this and embracing this kind of care, and that's what it really comes down to. So I hope to talk to you again in the future, and you take care of yourself and love on your baby, and happy birthday.
Thank you.
Just a couple of days ago.
Yes, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Therese. It's been so great talking with you.
Okay, you take care.
Thank you. You too.
So that was nice, and I appreciate, like I said to Dana, that she felt comfortable to be able to share such details of her birth experience with us and with so many people out there. It's just really helpful. I don't think there's any of us who don't like to hear birth stories, period, and then to hear the impact also of her doula being present and what she did for her and how she felt she was so important is reassuring, I hope, to all of you as doulas, and gives you pause to consider your role and affirm you and inform you and consider how you would handle a circumstance like that, or have you handled circumstances and what you did. I just think it's a great opportunity of learning. It's a different kind of case study. And also hearing what Dana found is going to, from that experience, how she feels it's going to impact her as a doula as well, I think is important. I know that I teach a lot of people who have had doulas as in their birth experiences, which is what draws them to becoming doulas themselves. They realize the importance of that doula in their life experience and how they really want to be able to share that with other people as well. So I think it's great. And just so everyone knows, Dana did have permission from Morgan to share her name, and so she was not doing that without that full disclosure there. So again, I just want to remind everyone to take some time to look at our calendar for the spring workshops, winter spring workshops that are coming up. We have a very full schedule, and it is still growing, so keep your eyes open and register now. Ask for a Christmas present for someone to help you get to a workshop. Take a break from your daily life if you can, and travel somewhere. If you live in another state and we are not having, if you live somewhere, I should say it this way, and we're not having a workshop in your community, are you able to travel? And if you are, what a great reason to take a trip, go somewhere, really spend some time learning, coming together with a group who are in many ways in a very similar spot as you, as far as journeying into life work, and enjoy. I know not everyone can travel, so if we don't have a workshop in your community, reach out to our workshop coordinator at tolaborworkshops@gmail.com and see if there's a possibility of bringing a workshop to your community. I can't guarantee it, but it certainly is worth investigating if it's the only way you think you could make it to a training. Also, I always say this, but I really, really do mean it, and I said it to Dana as we were finishing up. I'm just grateful to all of you for your passion and your commitment to this work. I know it's not easy, and I know it can be at times work that you just think, I just don't know why I'm doing this. I don't want to do it. And then you show up at a birth and you're like, oh yeah, I love doing this work. Or you're at a birth and you think, oh my God, what am I doing? This is so hard. But you keep doing it. And I also appreciate those who are at a place who are finding it difficult to maintain the life of a doula and are taking a break. Maybe it's for a short time, maybe it will be for a long time. I really, really think that is doing excellent care for yourself, which is what you need to do if indeed you're going to take care of other people, either sometime in the future or in other avenues. So listen to what your heart is and your body is really telling you. But I appreciate you listening to this podcast and giving us such wonderful support and feedback. I find it so interesting. I mean, I have to tell you, it makes me laugh at times when I meet people and they go, oh my God, I listen to you. I drive in my car so we can hear you talk. Or my favorite is, my baby loves to hear your voice. It puts them to sleep. And I think that is one of the best things. I put people to sleep. I'm sure I put a lot of people to sleep. So thank you for listening. Thank you for doing this work wherever you're at in it. And thanks for supporting me and ToLabor and the ToRAISE Questions Doula podcast. And with that said, I would love to encourage you to donate to the podcast to offset some of our production costs, which I want to give a shout out. Our production is done by the wonderful Matt Fisher, who takes this recording each time and splices it together for me, or does however he does, and has to pay attention to all my notes. So thank you to Matt. It would help if you have a little bit to spare. To donate to us, you can go to the website, tolabor.com, and go to the podcast page, the tab, and there is a space that will take you to donate. And if you could, I'd love it. If you can't, I just love that you're out there listening to us and giving us support in other ways. So pass us on. Let other people know that we are a podcast that they can listen to, and let others know about the ToLabor workshops as well. If you think we're worth listening to, I hope you'll think we're worth coming to as well. So until next time, thanks everyone for listening, and be well.